The Meanest Doll in the World. Chapter 2. A Mission. Annabelle was relieved when the next morning Kate remembered to open up the dollhouse before she left for school. Annabelle had enjoyed having a family sing along the night before and being able to chant R-E-S-P-E-C-T a little more loudly than usual. But she had missed visiting with Tiffany. Now, back on her bed where she had been placed by Kate after the soap dish rescue, Annabelle lay quietly, listening to the morning sounds of the Palmer's house. She heard voices in the kitchen as Kate and Nora and their parents and Grandma Catherine ate breakfast. Then she heard the doors open and close as one by one the humans left their house. Mr. and Mrs. Palmer went off to their jobs. Kate left for fourth grade and Nora for kindergarten. And finally, Grandma Catherine left to run errands. All clear? Annabelle called a few moments later. All clear, replied Papa Doll. Annabelle leaped off her bed and ran down the stairs to the dollhouse to the first floor. She sat on the edge of the parlor, her legs dangling over the side. Far below her was the floor of Kate's room. I wonder where Tiffany is, she said to Auntie Sarah, who sat nearby, scribbling in the pages of her journal. She didn't try to come over last night. Probably left behind in the bathtub, Auntie Sarah replied. This was true. Poor Tiffany and her family, after enjoying games in the tub with Nora, were occasionally left there until the next time someone wanted to take a bath. And as fearless and as talented as they were not able to climb up the slippery sides of the tub to escape. Annabelle was disappointed about Tiffany, but glad to have a moment with her aunt. She stood behind her and peered at the pages of the journal, the very same journal that Annabelle had found all those months ago. The clues in which had led her and Tiffany to the attic and the reunion with Auntie Sarah. On its pages, Auntie Sarah recorded her adventures and discoveries, most of which involved spiders. Fascinating to Auntie Sarah and terrifying to Annabelle. What's that? Asked Annabelle, looking at her aunt's drawing of legs and eyes and abdomen. Amarobus ferox? Amarobus ferox, or the black lace weaver, was the spider for which Auntie Sarah had been searching when she had become trapped in the attic. Annabelle was pleased with herself for remembering its Latin name. No, replied Auntie Sarah, setting down the tiny fountain pen that had been added to the dollhouse in 1931. This is a nursery web spider, Dolomedes tenebrosas. It's absolutely enormous. It's not seen very often and it's partial to aquatic habitats, but it's native to eastern North America, and I'm determined to glimpse one with my own eyes someday. One never knows what one might find. Annabelle shuddered. She didn't like pictures of spiders, let alone face-to-face meetings with live ones. I think I'll go on an exploration to the attic tonight, if that's possible, Auntie Sarah continued. Would you and Tiffany like to come with me? An exploration to look for an absolutely enormous, probably hairy spider. A spider hunt, really? Annabelle shuddered again, but she said bravely, Sure. If Auntie Sarah and Tiffany were going on a spider hunt, then Annabelle wanted to go with them. The doll's house sat on a shelf in a corner of Kate's room. Below it was a small wooden stool, 4 steps high. When Kate was younger, she had used the stool to reach the top floor of the house. She no longer needed it, but she left it there anyway, and Annabelle was glad. Without the stool, the dolls would have been stranded in their home, high above the floor. With the stool, they could venture beyond Kate's room, which Annabelle and Auntie Sarah and Bobby did frequently. The other dolls were content to stay put. On the night after Miami Beach A Go-Go, Annabel waited until she was sure the humans were in their beds and sound asleep. Then she stood up from the uncomfortable position in which Kate had left her in the kitchen of the dollhouse and called to Auntie Sarah, who was lying on the dining room table. "Can we go now?" she asked. She was determined to appear excited about the prospect of finding Dolomedes tenebrosa. "I think so," replied Auntie Sarah. She slid stiffly off the table. "Let's go see if Tiffany is back in Nora's room." Annabel and her aunt called goodbye to the rest of the dolls, made their way down the steps of the stool, and darted across the floor of Kate's darkened room. They were rounding the corner into the hallway when they heard a small shout. It was Tiffany. "Hey!" she called. "Where are you going?" "To the attic," replied Auntie Sarah. "On an exploration. Can you join us?" "Definitely." Tiffany took Annabel's hand as they hurried along the hallway toward the attic door. "Nora didn't remember to take us out of the bathtub until tonight," she said. "I love Miami Beach A-Go-Go, but I don't know if it's worth getting stuck in the tub." "What are we looking for in the attic?" "Dolomedes tenebrosa," Annabel said proudly. "Right, Auntie Sarah?" "That's right. Dolomedes tenebrosa is an especially large spider, Tiffany. It's mainly an outdoor spider, but it does come inside occasionally. I think I might have seen one while I was stuck in the attic, but it's a little hard to tell. I was trapped there for such a long time. I never knew whether I was dreaming or—" Auntie Sarah's voice trailed off, and Annabel knew that her aunt's mind had jumped to another topic. She said nothing, though, because they had reached the door to the attic, which was usually left ajar, and they needed to concentrate in order to pull it out far enough to slither through the opening. When they were on the other side of the door, they began the long climb up the stairs to the attic. At the top, they lay together in a heap, panting. Each step was taller than the dolls, so the climb involved lots of pulling and pushing and puffing. "All right," said Auntie Sarah after a few moments. "All right," repeated Tiffany. "Now, what does what does a spider look like?" "It's enormous," said Annabel. "Yes, it's quite large." Auntie Sarah's voice trailed off again. "Girls, there's something else." She paused. "I've not mentioned this to anyone before." "What? What is it?" cried Tiffany. Annabel, who had an idea that this something else concerned spiders, said nothing. "Well, it's an idea I've been working on," said Auntie Sarah. "Come, sit down with me." Auntie Sarah led Annabel and Tiffany through the dusty attic, which was lit only by a sliver of moonlight shining through the single small window on the far well. They passed old cartons and discarded furniture and rolls of carpet and finally stopped at a pile of rags. Auntie Sarah patted it. "Very comfy," she said. The girls sat down, one on either side of Auntie Sarah. Tiffany was wiggling with excitement. "What's your idea? What is it?" "It is my dream," Auntie Sarah began slowly, "to start a spider farm." "What?" cried Annabel, leaping to her feet. She put a hand on her mouth. "What do you want a spider farm for?" asked Tiffany reasonably. "It has occurred to me," said Auntie Sarah, "that I could harvest the silk produced by the spiders to make nearly invisible ropes and ladders and nets. Then even timid dolls like your parents, Annabel, would feel more comfortable about leaving the house. For instance, at times like last night when Kate locked us in, we could still get outside. We could just lower a ladder and an almost invisible one out a window and climb down to the floor." Annabel stared at her aunt. She had to admit that this was a brilliant idea. Auntie Sarah was just like all those famous women. she was always telling Annabel about Madame Curie, Harriet Tubman, and Amelia Earhart. Are you sure that would work? Asked Tiffany. Positive, replied Auntie Sarah. Spider's silk is extremely strong. A single strand of it can be stronger than a strand of steel. Plus, it's stretchier than nylon, so it would be good for nets. Wow, said Tiffany. Do you want Dolometus tenebrosa for the farm? Asked Annabel. No, I'm just curious about him. What I'd really like for the farm, at least at the beginning, is Tenagera domestica. That's the most common house spider in America. He's a hard worker. Whenever his web is damaged, he immediately begins repairing it. Oh, so you could harvest lots and lots of the silk? Said Annabel. Exactly. Auntie Sarah smiled at her. Later, once the farm has been established, I'll want to build up various herds since different kinds of spider produce different kinds of silk, but that's in the future. I plan to start small and grow. Also, I want to study spiders up close to find out how they're able to crawl straight down doors and walls and how they just dangle from high places. Imagine the benefit to doll kind. If there were doll history books, said Annabel, you'd be in the chapter about amazing women. Maybe you'd have a chapter all yourself. Annabel felt suddenly braver. After all, she was the niece of her very brave aunt. Let's get started, exclaimed Tiffany, standing up. So, are we going to look for that huge spider, or are we going to do something about the farm? Both, replied Auntie Sarah. What I'd like to do tonight is to keep a log of all the spiders we see. I want to get an idea of how many kinds are up here, for one thing. If we do spot Dolomedes tenebrosa, well, that would be cause for celebration. So let's start looking. Call me even if you see a spider web. I can tell by the web what kind of spider made it. Tiffany and Annabel and her aunt split up and started searching the dark corners or hidey holes of the attic. Every few moments, someone would call out, "Here's a web," or "What kind of spider is this?" or "I see something over there." And Auntie Sarah would investigate and make notes in her journal. Much later, Annabel was noticing that the light in the attic was growing stronger when two things happened at once. Tiffany said, "Gosh, I think it's getting late. We'd better start back downstairs." And Auntie Sarah said, "Oh my heavens, I do believe that's the web of Dolomedes tenebrosa." "Where?" cried Annabel. "There?" "Yes," said Auntie Sarah, sounding greatly excited. And Annabel, determined to show Tiffany and her aunt that she wasn't afraid of enormous spiders, ran across the attic floor, stumbled on a scrap of carpet, and fell head first into the web. "Uh-oh," she said as she sat up. She began to pull at the sticky wisps of silk that covered her face and hair and clothing. The web was ruined. "Oh, I'm sorry, Auntie Sarah." Auntie Sarah pressed her hands together and said briskly, "It's all right, Annabel. What's done is done." Annabel got to her feet. Tiffany and Auntie Sarah were staring at her. They stood just inches away, but for a moment Annabel felt as if she were high up in the soap dish again, set apart from the others who were playing below.